As you see, we have 33 disease chapters written on physical activity and the role of it in psychiatry, neurology, cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, orthopedic disease, etc., etc. So it's truly translational, based on the evidence out there. And we have a popular version, which we work with extensively as well for ordinary people to learn more about what they can do about their own health, basically, in this regard. So that was an example of translation, which I think is highly, as was stated by many, highly important and basically the end goal of knowledge and science, to translate it into some type of usage. And teaching, which I'm heavily involved in since 25 years, is basically maybe the most fun part in many ways of all I do. And not only because it's a good way to learn myself, but because it's highly, let's say, rewarding in the sense that people are so curious. Students like yourselves are curious and want to know more. And it's not that I can respond to all issues, but possibly, hopefully, guide and inspire. That's a reasonable goal, I think. And beyond teaching in an ordinary fashion, I've worked extensively since I was a medical student with science communication. And that means communicating science and knowledge beyond the walls of academia. So the first thing I did really was a Science Center exhibition at the Museum of Natural History on the senses, on vision, hearing, pain, balance, etc. We brought students from Karolinska in white lab coats, Karolinska stated, and ran experiments on the visitors in the museum on the senses. So we did tricks in a sense on them, and it was quite appreciated, very popular exhibition. It made me clear over that we could do much more on exhibitions about the body and medicine in general. So I did a second one on man in space, which was about weightlessness, in line with what I did in my PhD. And now there's one permanent exhibition there, which I designed and developed, called Marvels of the Human Body. So I think it's very possible and quite important to work with the public in many ways. And we're now planning to probably make a big science center on Norra Station that will probably come to fruition in 2018. So, and that will be together with all the other universities, not only medicine, all aspects of academia. And I also started a conference way back, 6 years, not way back, but some time ago, which is all about knowledge. Because in Europe, science has been reasonably high on the agenda, but ideology has prevailed to a large degree. So we try to influence politics by running a big biennial conference on science and its role in European society. And it's now become quite large, with about 6,000 attendees and 600 journalists, and it's quite interesting to see politicians come to the meeting to talk and learn, hopefully. And schools are quite interesting in many ways. There is a big gap between universities and schools, in Sweden at least. And I think it's important that pupils at school and their teachers come to universities, interact, and vice versa. And one of the most challenging things I've done is to write a textbook in biology for 12 to 16-year-olds. And that was a journey, because my first chapters were disastrous in a sense, because I tried to adapt them, of course, but they were too much of a university type of text. But after having my harsh advisory board consisting of 15, 14-year-olds, I learned a lot, and they hammered the texts, and it became quite nice, not least through today's opportunities in illustrations, which are quite different from what I had in textbooks way back, as you can see. But this has been some very important work for me, and I'm now writing one for the gymnasium level in biology. And another thing you could do is to become involved in the journals that are important in your field. And in medicine in Sweden, the major educational route is the Journal of the Swedish Medical Association, Läkartidningen, where I've been an editor for about 11 years. And it's extremely interesting because you get such an overview of what goes on in politics and in science in Sweden. So it's more of an educational journey in many ways. And I work together with one of Johan's close colleagues who is also involved in Médecins Sans Frontières, and we learn a lot from each other all the time. And we suggest and run themes that are important for the medical community to learn more about, we believe. And finally, I will talk a little bit about a unit which I lead at Karolinska, called the Unit for Bioentrpreneurship. Again, it's about translation. It's about putting science to use. And we didn't have any such unit until about 5 years ago, where we basically train and educate students and faculty on how to put ideas to use. And healthcare and research as well are really good platforms for innovations, because the constant exposure to problems in healthcare leads to people having a lot of ideas. But as is stated down below, the majority of our educational programs are vocational, leading to a profession, and are not really automatically linked to innovation and making new products or putting new service ideas to use. But I think we're changing the situation right now through different types of courses. And we do this not only through courses, but also seminars and mentorships and master programs. One which many representative students are here from today, the Master in Bioentrpreneurship, which is a 2-year program entirely focused on the biomedical industry, how to put things to use in the form of biotechnology products, medical devices, or pharmaceutical drugs, for example. And we do this in the context of all the other universities in Stockholm. And Stockholm School of Entrepreneurship is an interesting entity that you may have heard of, SSES. It's based on a donation from the company, basically, you mentioned before, H&M. So the money takes different routes through the world system, but this is a very large donation to put ideas to use. And I won't go into detail on this. We also have done several investigations and mappings of what goes on. One interesting one is Female Inventors at Karolinska Institutet, which we did about 2 years ago. When we started this project based on a grant from a public agency, we and others that we spoke to could not come up with too many. We were scratching our heads and stopped at 5. But then we really started investigating it. We ended up with easily the 30 we needed for these booklets, because we wanted one booklet for each educational program at Karolinska. And fantastic stories on how people in healthcare or in research come up with ideas, are convinced, and just bang their heads and move on and really realize their ideas. So these you can download or ask me or find on the web, as I said. Very inspiring stories on how products or services in healthcare or research were done by these people. And if you're interested, we run recurrently something called the B Club, where we invite interesting people to talk about things that are important to us. Finally, my advice to you while being students at Karolinska is to network, because the way you can network as students is different from the way you might be able to network later. You may be more powerful in a sense to network later, but you're always then again a power, or you are maybe asking for a job. And being students, you can network in a more seamless fashion, and people like discussing things with students and guide them. So take the opportunity. And it's key, because without the network you can't do much at the end of the day. This is a slide that we used in the class recently, and it's about what kinds of networks you need at different phases of a project. In the beginning, maybe you need your close-knit network to think about something and to trustfully discuss things. But as soon as you need to expand it and test it, you must access a larger network to be criticized and see if it really holds up. And as you move along in a project, you need, again, a close network of people you trust. So networks can take many shapes and forms. A shallow one that is broad, and a deep one that you really work with. And you should, if you were, I think you should, analyze your own network. What kinds of people do I have in my network? Which people can I contact and work with? And this is on the web if you are interested. And it's important to network. It's also fun, because people are the thing, as was mentioned before, much more driving and interesting than anything else. In a sense, the people you can meet and should meet. And I would say the time window when networking is quite short. So when you are in places like this or in other contexts, don't hesitate, do it. Otherwise, these people that you find interesting are gone and more difficult to contact. You can always reconnect once you've said hello. So things like this, I think, are important for you. And there are some tools and ways. And with that, I end. Thank you.
Questions, comments, thoughts, reflections to Carl-Johan? How many of you will have your own company in 10 years from now?
Some.
Some? A few? One question, yes? No? Okay.
How many will do important things in 10 years?
Yep. How many will have fun in 10 years?
Yes.
Good, good. Thank you, Carl-Johan.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's